Hey there and welcome to Richmond Woodworks. So what we are doing here today is part of our how-to series. So this is episode 1 in how-to. If you want to have a look at how I built this whole workshop, you can have a look in the workshop series. I'm taking a slight pause from the workshop series just purely because I'm waiting for the drawer fronts that I've painted to dry. Instead of just watching it dry, which is thrilling stuff, I thought I'll slap together this quick video of how to actually construct upper cabinets. Super straightforward. Anyone can do it. You can do it yourself with a circular saw and something straight to run that circular saw down, just so you can cut very right angle cuts. Right, so the components of upper cabinets, it's pretty easy. There's two sides, a top and a bottom, and then there's stuff in the middle that you can choose to do with whatever you want. You can either fix shelves by screwing in from the side, and that way you can't move them, or you can use a shelf pin guide. There's a really good one available from Craig, and what that does is just allows you, it gives you a really nice guide to just drill consistently spaced 5mm holes from one another, so you can have some shelf pins and you can adjust the shelves yourself. So you have the two backs, or the two sides, and the front and the top. Then you have a back. You have a few options when it comes to a back. You can either just have a solid piece of melamine screwed to the back and then call it a done day. Or the alternative is you have, what I'm going to be doing is I just bought this really cheap 3mm MDF with a white front. So it's just laminated white front, which is fantastic because you can just use that as a back to your upper cabinets and no one will know if it's solid or one of these little sheets. And how you can screw it to the wall, you add in a series of supports, top and bottom, and you screw those into the wall, and those supports screw into the sides and to the top and bottom. So it gives it a really good anchor point to the wall. Now, not everything's going to be standing up to a ton of weight, so we really have to be careful how much weight we'll put up there. But those ones behind me, they're probably carrying about 30 or 40 kilograms each, which is fantastic. So that's far more than I want to lift above my head anyway, so it makes things a lot easier. Now, what you have to do is kind of keep an eye out for what is presented. So I went to Bunnings, and these sheets, you can buy them in 1.8, I think 1.2, 1.8 and 2.4 meter lengths. I bought one that was already laminated at the front, and this is 445mm deep. You can buy them from Bunnings at $2.95, $4.45 or $5.95. And what I tend to do is, just to minimize the amount of cuts that I want to do, is construct my lower cabinets, my upper cabinets, based around the dimensions that are already existing and already available at Bunnings. You can buy a full sheet and then cut it down, just makes things a lot complicated. And those full sheets are quite heavy as well. So if you're trying to navigate and lift that thing around, it's quite hefty. So what we have here is one of the uppers, or the sides, that I plan to use for the upper cabinets. And because they're going to be up high, you can see from the bottom that there's chipboard exposed. Now, how we deal with that is super simple. You can go to Bunnings or Mitre 10 or any hardware store, and they'll sell this pre-glued laminate, and you can use just a regular old iron, and if you put a little bit of baking paper underneath that iron, it won't burn this, and also it won't ruin your iron by putting glue on it, so you just save you getting in trouble. But I'm fortunate that I have a edge laminator, so I'm just going to use that because I have it. And that takes a similar kind of roll. You can use any old laminate on there. I just buy it in 50-meter rolls, but at Bunnings you can buy them in packs of 10-meter rolls. It's everything you need to construct a upper cabinet. Now, what we're going to be doing is actually putting it together. So let's get to it. So I've put the edging on the sidewall of my upper cabinets, and the next thing we need to do is just trim the ends and trim the edges themselves as well. I happen to have one of these edge trimmers and one of these edge trimmers as well. One does the ends and one does the sides, but you could very, very easily just do it with a Stanley knife, nice and carefully. Very sharp one, so if you can, just get a new blade and just very slowly trim the edge. The alternative also is that you can actually use a chisel if you have one laying around, and just have the chisel resting on the melamine itself and just slowly cut away that slither of melamine or the edging that needs to go away. Anyway, I'll make short work of this thing with my trusty end trimmer. Again, you don't need one, but I just happen to have one. And then this one trims the edges itself. It's super simple. I like to do 2 passes. And sometimes you have a feel and the edge trimmer just didn't do a little bit like it hasn't here. What you can actually do is just get a bit of 120 grit sandpaper just on a very flat block. You could just use an offcut from a 2x4 or a piece of timber. I happen to have these little plastic handles, which are nice, and just very easily and lightly trim that back and just have a manual feel. There we go. And the other side as well. Done. And what I like to do in every single one is round off the edge just a little bit, not so it's super noticeable, because what tends to happen when you have 2 bits of melamine squeezing together where they're both edged, and the melamine, the particle board itself will move a little bit, will compress, but the melamine itself or the edging won't, and that can either chip, or what tends to happen with this edging is that it just raises a little bit. So, done, simple as that. Just like that, just to give it that slight little curve, maybe go in 0.5 millimeter or so. Now, edging's done on both the side pieces underneath, so as you're looking up at the cabinet, you don't see any kind of chipboard. What you can actually do if you don't want to edge it, is you just get another sheet of that chipboard and then screw it underneath, probably from the inside. That way you won't see anything at all. And if you have a specific color you're after, you can get melamine in different colors than just white or black. It's usually a special order. And then you can frame out the outside of those cabinets, just like in your kitchen. Simple as that. So let's put it together, hey? So I have everything I need in order to put it together. So I find that the best way is to construct it on its side. That way you're not battling gravity, because the bottom and tops go into the uppers. So you just rest them on top and navigate it that way while you're trying to get the clamps on. So what you're going to need is the 4 bits to construct the upper cabinets. You need a couple of clamps. If you don't have them, it's not the end of the world. You can actually just use some sticky tape or some painter's tape. If you don't have that, that's fine as well. You can just wing it and try to drill and screw directly into the right spot. Right, so as you notice, this one's got a bit of blue tape, just because the edge of this one is probably not the best as it should be. So I made a mental note to myself to ensure that this one's on the top, because the underside of it is actually quite neat. And because it's going to be on top, you won't see those broken edges. All right, let's put this thing together. So I've made sure that edge that we laminated earlier is on the bottom, because that's the side that you're going to see when it's sitting up on the wall. And there you have it. It's a box. Now what you want to do, I typically slide it towards the edge of the table, clamp it together, and then slide it towards the other edge of the table and then clamp it together on that side as well, just so it doesn't move around. And while it's not too tight, what we can actually do is just adjust some of those corners so they neatly align as well, because clamps have a tendency to pull things out of whack a little bit while you're tightening things down. And there you have it, easy as that. Now, obviously, I think I'm missing something. I need to put in some screws. So that's pretty easy. So what you need to do is just have a drill bit and some screws. I like to get chipboard screws. You can buy them from Bunnings. There's a whole range of places you can buy them. So let's get screwing. Hey, so I have the impact driver I need for this. I have my 2 bits, so I have a drill bit as well as a Phillips head bit, and I got some 50mm chipboard screws. Now, the fancy thing about this is that what it has, as you can see, is a counter-sinking bit at the same time as a drill bit. So how it works, you want to pre-drill that hole, but also drills the countersink you need for the countersink bit, which is nice. So you don't have to have one of these. Usually there's enough force going through the timber to split out any of this chipboard, but this just makes it a lot neater. And that's it. Now I just have to do that on the 3 other sides and we have the box. Saved you the trouble from watching me screwing a whole bunch of screws. So we have all the screws in, we're ready to go. We just need to undo these clamps. And next what we're going to be doing is drilling holes for the shelves or the shelf pins. So this one I am not doing on my table saw because I'm drilling holes through this and I don't want to drill into my beautiful table saw. So what I have here in front of me is the Craig shelf pin guide. Super handy. I think you can buy them from Bunnings for like $40 or $50 or so. Super handy if you are wanting to drill holes into carcasses, uppers, lowers, cabinets or whatever, and make them ready for adjustable shelves. I even used this one inside the house as well, where we had only 3 or 4 holes, and I just wanted just that one hole a little bit higher up just to have that specific saucepan or the pot or whatever we wanted within one of the cupboards. Now, how it works is you essentially, what I like to do is start at the bottom and you have a rail which attaches to it, which goes on that side or on the other side, depending on which side of the carcass you're drilling. Now, don't forget, the orientation matters because these holes are spaced apart a certain distance. Now, if you start one from the bottom here and move up, and then start one from the bottom there and move up, you have shelves, but they'll be on a bit of an angle. So what I always like to do is I use the bottom of the carcass to do the bottom of the shelves. I never start from the top, and that's also why I have that blue tape up there to show me what's the top and bottom, just in case. So let me also show you the drill bit. It has a little stop collar there with a little Allen key. And what that does is ensure that it doesn't go through, like this would, that shelf. So what you want to do is put it through one of the holes and then align it also with how deep it's going to go. So let's put this little fence on and get started drilling. One thing I did want to show you though is before we start drilling, if you're like I am, wanting to match up against an existing set of uppers or lowers or even a bookshelf, what I like to do is just marry up, make sure the holes are at the same height. And if you want to triple check, the Craig kit comes with a pin and you can make sure that that goes through, which this one does, one of those holes. And it also gives you a good starting point as well. So I need to remember the first hole I'm going to drill is number 4. So the first set is done. Let's do the rest of it. And there you have it. We have the carcass almost ready to go to put up on the wall. Now there's 2 bits that are missing, 1 and 2. So those little horizontal pieces are what we're going to be using to actually fix into the wall itself. Now, make sure you do that bit after you do the shelf pins, because as you saw, those shelf pins need something to run off, and the edge is a perfect reference for that little plastic fence that attaches to that Craig jig. I didn't do that with the other ones. I constructed them and then went to put together the shelf pins and then realized I made a bit of a mistake. So, lesson learnt. Anyway, I make mistakes so you don't have to, right? So next we're going to be doing is putting on the 2 side stretches, and finally we'll put the back onto it, and we'll put in some of the shelves, and then we'll mount it to the wall. We have the stretchers ready to go. I actually put in some pocket holes pre-existing for this specific one, just purely because if you're screwing from the bottom, and this is entirely your choice if you want to, if you're screwing from the bottom and the side, or particularly the bottom, when there's the upper cabinet up there, you're actually going to see it when you look up at it. So a good way to hide those screws is to use pocket holes, and you screw them from, this is the back, and no one's going to see the back of it, and there we go. But you do have another alternative, is you just literally just screw in and just put in those little white caps, and no one will probably even notice. So let's put it together. And one of the final tasks is to just pop in that backer, and how you can do that is you need to use a staple gun. I'm fortunate enough that I have a little air tool version that wasn't very expensive, and the compressor I have was pretty cheap as well. All you need to do is just line it up and staple it in. Easy as that. Let's do it. And there you have it. All done and ready to put up on the wall. Let's do that now. All right, so I'm up on that little step ladder, and if you're like me and you're doing this by yourself, what can be super handy is to just put like a bit of plywood or something and screw it into the wall. Now, you can't always screw into a wall because you might have to fill that hole or fill that gap, and you can actually get what they call third hands. I don't have one. I've never really found the need for one, and they're not too cheap, but they're not too expensive, but just expensive enough for a couple of jobs. It's not worth it. So if you already have something up there already, here's a good handy little trick you can use. And what you do is literally clamp a little bit of timber underneath its brother. And what that also helps you do is align them nice and neatly, so they can align like these two do. And when you eventually, if you choose to put doors on it, those doors will also align nice and neatly as well. So let's wrangle this cabinet up here, eh? Easy as that. So now what you do, clamp the two together. It's not going anywhere. Now that we have them clamped all together, they're just sitting there by themselves, which is nice. Now what we need to do is screw them into the walls itself. So in my specific scenario, I have 15mm plywood, structural plywood on the walls itself, lining the entire shed. And I specifically did that so I could do things like this and not have to find a stud like you do in a house. So in a house, you probably find that your studs are 450mm apart, and you'll firstly try to find a stud finder and then line up that screw hole with exactly where you need to go into. So you hit the stud and not the plaster wall, and then the cabinet peels off the wall. Right, so let's screw it into the back, top and bottom, and then what we'll do is we'll countersink, same as we did in the other cabinets, and screw them to one another as well. So if one they all kind of peel off the wall together if they fall off, which would be fantastic. So let's get to that now. So what I have here is 10 gauge countersunk screws, and they are 50mm long. So you're going to go through 16mm of the material, 3mm of the backer, and then 15mm into the ply. So 16 plus 3 plus 15 is more than enough for this thing. I'm not going to maths live. So let's get these in and get these together, and then we'll clean out some of the debris that's in there, and then we can start loading up some shelves. Let's do it. There you have it, easy as that. So what I need to do is just clean it out a little bit, and then we'll put those little shelf pins in and start loading it up with crap I probably don't need and want to store. Let's get on with it. And there you have it. The upper cabinets are fully done. I still have yet to put the fronts on them. I want to put little doors, but I still want to decide on the color scheme. So if you have any suggestions, put them in the description below. So I designed these upper cabinets around these plastic tubs, and you can buy these for $20 from Officeworks, which is a pretty decent deal. And the idea is I will take each plastic tub with me to the specific task that I'm doing. So if I'm gluing, I have a tub of glue. If I'm sanding, I have a tub of sandpaper. And the idea behind that is after every single task, just say you're sanding or you're gluing, then sanding, then so on and so forth with every little project. What tends to happen is if you don't have it handy available for you to put it away, you tend to just put it down where you are and get on with the task, and next thing you know, you're tripping over something. So I find that these plastic tubs I could take with me, use the components of it, put it all back in here because it's in within arm's reach, and then it's just a single journey just to throw it away up there. So if you do like this content, please like and subscribe and all those good things, and leave a comment. I really enjoy reading every single comment, and I respond to every single one, and it just brings me joy. Even the negative ones. I haven't had any negative ones so far, so that's pretty good. But if you do make a negative one, it is what it is. Anyway, I'm gonna get on with filling the rest of this up, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves. Bye.